It is official. Nvidia has become the third stock ever to reach $3 trillion in market cap.
Hi Team Value, JJ here. Welcome back. Well, today we're going to have a look at the news that Nvidia has passed a $3 trillion market cap mark. They're surpassing Apple for a while there. And then we're going to look at what Aswath Damodaran, the Dean of Valuation, is saying about this. He's recently said that he thinks it's overvalued, and I've made videos about that. What's he saying today? Has he changed his tune? Let's get into it.
Nvidia really the poster child for all this AI excitement because it makes the chips that power all that AI software. And the question here for Nvidia is whether fundamentally these gains are justified.
That is the key question, and for most analysts out there, they'd say yes. If you look at the ultimate amount of still buyers on the rating of the stock, the valuation in many ways is phenomenal from a $3 trillion perspective. But the PE ratios, they ain't that crazy, because why? Revenue is growing at such a pace. Just take their previous quarter numbers. When you've got revenue climbing at 200%, no wonder the share price is already climbing 200%.
The question is, can it keep going? Can it keep climbing that much? We've got forward PE ratios, not too expensive, but can it keep going? Can they keep growing at this pace? That's the question. Or is it going to be cyclical, and then is there a reckoning? Remains to be seen.
We're meant to be anticipating these sorts of gains. It's meant to be a future indication of value. And ultimately, in the moment, many feel that, yes, it's an equivalent to an Apple right now in terms of market cap. It should be.
Actually, as Nvidia continues to move higher, it has now overtaken Apple. Of course, this is a parlor game. We have to wait till we get to...
But more market cap than Apple. Wow, it's definitely a milestone.
The actual closing bell for this to be official here, but it really does sort of show how much has changed. Because remember, Apple was the big growth stock a few years ago, and now some people would say it's just basically just a cash-generating dividend stock.
Value remains value.
Oh, sorry, value, excuse me.
Warren Buffett likes those cash-generating companies, and Apple's that he bought into it, you know, when the PE was, I don't know, 11 or 12, you know, it's a far cry from that now, and nobody wanted it back then. 2016, 2017, I think they were still buying, and it's done well for him, and he saw the cash. He understood it as a consumer electronics company from that level. He doesn't really understand smartphones, but he understands that people buy them, and people would rather give up their car than give up a phone. There were surveys done on that, so he definitely understands that. But Nvidia has now surpassed Apple, I think briefly, but it's right there. $3 trillion market cap. It's amazing just how much that is.
But Nvidia is the growth stock, right? Now, whether they actually make good on all those growth expectations, that remains to be seen over the long term. But at least for right now, this is where it's at. Is there anything else out there?
Is there anything else out there? There's plenty out there that aren't mega caps. And I've just done a couple of episodes on Alibaba, which used to be a mega cap. It's gone down a lot. Can it regain that status? I mean, the difference between an Nvidia and Apple and Microsoft and Alibaba, for instance, is definitely big right now. The valuation that the market is putting on these companies, these US companies, is pretty incredible compared to similar Chinese stocks. And there are reasons for that. People have different views on that.
In terms of comparable, where else you could, well, HPE today was showing that AI can bathe glory on some of the other infrastructure players. So if you want to be buying into future server demand, well, HPE see an 11% increase in its stock today and a new record high, but it is well off the market cap of an Nvidia.
Dragging a lot of other companies up with it. Nvidia, anything to do with AI is going gangbusters. Is this going to turn into a bubble like we saw with the dot-com bubble back in those days? And as she said, you know, they've got the earnings and the growth to back it up.
Now, remember, come Monday, we get a stock split.
Yeah.
This has got so expensive. Maybe some of that valuation has been picking up because we anticipate retail investors are getting more into the stock.
The split's I think has got quite a bit to do with this. You know, everybody anticipating that split, what will happen after the split, but it definitely gets retail involved. I've seen retail excitement there because of the stocks, but it doesn't really affect the company too much at all. It's just slicing the pizza into more pieces. That's all it's doing, but it does allow retail investors to buy in at cheaper prices, way under $1,000, that's for sure.
No, I don't want to sound like a broken record, but an intrinsic value base, it's really tough to get to $3 trillion.
And that's what he's been saying. It's tough to see the valuation on intrinsic value. The Dean of Valuation saying this, mind you.
Said though, if you were designing the perfect momentum company from scratch, Nvidia would be it. There you've got a great story, a CEO who sticks to the story, no distractions.
I think he's referring to Elon Musk there, distractions about it. But momentum, notice he's saying a momentum stock, a momentum company, implying that it's not really a valid valuation, but there's a lot of momentum behind it. And he has said before on these shows that at some stage momentum turns, and that's when the trouble begins.
Is able to meet expectations in the short term because they've set the game up. And you got a market that contributes to the mix. I mean, I think that you're seeing one of the great momentum plays of all time playing out in front of you. One
of the great momentum plays of all time. Thinking about, the markets over so long, going back so long. This is really his history in the making. It's interesting to see. I'm not in the stock. I'm just on the sidelines. It's interesting to see what's going to happen. Will this AI turn into a massive bubble with dragging a lot of things with it, or will it, not do that? We'll have to wait and see. Now, if you're getting value out of this episode so far, I'd really appreciate it if you manage to smash that like button to help the algorithm to spread it to more people. It really does help. And if you're new here, do consider subscribing so you get more of this kind of content in the future.
Are you reevaluating, I guess, is maybe the best word I can think of at least now, of how you would view this stock in terms of its value? If you thought it was overvalued before,
right,
what do you think now? And are you looking at it? Is it forcing you to look at it differently?
Oh, well, with every earnings report, you're always required to go back and look at your basic story. And I think my basic story is bigger than it was a year ago, partly because of what Nvidia has delivered.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, they've delivered every earnings every quarter. They have kept the growth going. But in the past, these things have been cyclical. So it's going to be interesting to see if they can keep that up, or I've seen investors being pretty nervous going into those earnings, but, I guess it's at the point where nobody is bearish that the problems begin. I don't know. I don't have an opinion on it one way or the other.
And partly because of what AI is showing it can do in the overall economy and market. I was listening in on the story about HP Enterprises reporting higher earnings because of AI. You saw that with the big tech companies. I think you're seeing AI percolate, go beyond the architecture part of the business into services, into products, into the rest, the software. And I think
software, that's a good point. They are going more into software. They talked about self-driving and all these things. So they've got the hardware and then they're putting software onto it. A real system. I don't like to say ecosystem because ecosystem is an ecosystem, but a system, where their clients are getting locked in more and more until if there's competition, if there's other companies that come up, or these clients are starting to make their own. But this is not an easy business. This is not easy to develop this kind of highly sophisticated technology to ramp that up.
I think you're going to start to see the ripple effect show up in other companies.
So if I raise my hand in your class and I say simply, Professor, is Nvidia overvalued? What do you say today?
I would say based on my story, 3 trillion is too high a number, but I think this is a story where you could find plausible paths to get to 3 trillion if you add on additional markets. So if somebody says, I'm buying Nvidia because I think it's cheap, it's not my job to argue with them and tell them that it's not cheap. I think the story is, in a sense, and that's one of the things about momentum companies, is there is a plausible path to get to these really high numbers. And when the momentum is in your favor, you'll find those paths.
When the momentum's in your favor, that's the key point again. He did say about Tesla when it was 400 and less than that there was momentum there, and he couldn't see the valuation getting there. That he said similar things, and it's come way down over half than what it was now. And he's saying the momentum's with it, the market, the bullishness of the market is with it, and it's driving it up. I think that's what he's really saying there. He's not coming out and saying it's simply way overvalued or anything like that, but he's sort of implying that it's momentum, a momentum trade. One of the best of all time.
That's why it's so hard, I guess, to be negative. If you say there's such a plausible path, your words, that people sort of can see that. That's why it's hard to be short names like this.
I've seen people short it, by the way. I think Paul Gabriel from Everything Money was short Nvidia. And when I saw that, I kind of couldn't believe it because he's a value investor. To be shorting something like this, Warren Buffett would never do something like that, even though you know how obvious these things might seem. Say Tesla when it was at the top, or other stocks when at the top, the market, the momentum, it crazy can get even more crazy.
Let me ask you this. When you're last with me, you said, quote, "May will be a month that determines how returns for the year will look." So, April was ugly. May, we came roaring back. Does that make you optimistic now for the rest of the year?
Makes me feel much more upbeat leading into the political season, because I have a feeling that the next few months we are going to see the political play come into markets as well. I'm surprised it hasn't shown up more strongly yet, because I think we are heading in an election. There are going to be uncertainties that come with that. But I feel much better going into the summer now than I did a month ago.
Interesting. Going into the summer there, where things traditionally do slow down a little bit in the market. And also, what he said there, an election year, there are many different aspects to that, but he seems pretty bullish about the market for the rest of the year, given that it's an election year and there's momentum going with Nvidia and AI stocks in other parts of the market. He does own the stock. It's not as if he's against it or bearish on it. He does own it. They said that at the beginning there. He's owned it for a long time. So he's himself doing well out of it, but he does obviously think that it's overvalued. What do you think? Let me know in the comments what you think. Do you think that Nvidia is overvalued? There are people in both camps saying not really. Is it a bubble? There are some really good investors, super investors, who think that it's already a bubble. Or will it get there? Will this keep going on? It's way over 1,000 on the screen there. It says 1,218. It's got to a $3 trillion market cap, surpassing Apple for a while there. Is it going to become the most expensive company, or the most by market cap in the world, the most highly valued? What do you think? Do you think this can go on? Let me know in the comments. Now, I do talk about Nvidia and other companies and many aspects of investing over at the Art of Value Patreon. I'll leave a link in the description if you want to check that out, and see you over there. Now, I do need you to know that I'm not a financial advisor, and nothing here is financial advice. This is just for general education and entertainment purposes. You need to do your own research and analysis, or seek a professional financial advisor before making any investment decision. Now, if you're watching this video on YouTube, I'm going to put a link here to a previous episode of Aswath Damodaran talking about how he thinks that Nvidia is insanely overpriced the stock not so long ago. So go and see that now if you haven't seen that already. I'll put a link in the description, and others as well, for people who are watching or listening elsewhere. And thanks to everybody for watching or listening, and I'll see you in the next one.